Today then on the channel we have a video type that doesn't upset people at all and it's never controversial. It is a tier list we're going to do, so we're going to rate the heroes available in Marvel's Midnight Suns from best to worst. Now the game is just out, you're probably saying to yourself, how can I rate the heroes already? I've actually had access to the game for around about 3 or 4 weeks now and I've got over 200 hours in game. I've got all the heroes maxed out, so I've spent a lot of time on all of them. In this video, when we actually break them down, I'm just going to do a very quick summary. It'll be something like a minute max for each hero. The reason being, I've actually got separate 20-minute in-depth breakdowns of all the heroes, so if you see a summary you perhaps don't agree with it, feel free to check out the 20-minute video to get a lot more context and why I've came to the rating for that particular hero. I'll just mention as well, I'm not going to cover the Hunter in this particular video because they're a very distinct character, very different from other heroes because they have 30 cards, and how well they play, which can be really well, is really down to the cards you use. Now of course the other heroes in the game only have 10, the Hunter has 30, so there's just too much to take into account. Depending on how they're built, they could be an F tier or they could be an S tier, but if you build them right, they are pretty amazing, I will say that much. So that's everything you need to know, so let's dive in. We'll do this in alphabetical order, so we'll start off with Blade first. Blade then is one of the first characters you unlock in the game, and at that point, because you don't have a lot of points of reference, you will probably think he's really pretty strong, but as the game goes on, as you unlock other characters and cards, he most definitely falls off. Now, he's a damage style character. A portion of his kit, and it looks like a portion of his damage has been assigned to the bleed mechanic. He can add a ton of bleeds to enemies because he's got a lot of chains in his kit and he's got various mods that can add a flat amount of bleed as well, so you can get a ton of bleed on enemies, which sounds pretty amazing, but the way bleed works unfortunately is really underwhelming. So I'll just give an example. Let's say you were to add 10 bleed stacks to an enemy and each of the stacks does 100 damage. At the end of that turn, what will actually happen is the enemy will take their turn first and they'll damage you before the bleed kicks in, and then at the end of that particular turn, rather than all 10 stacks consuming themselves for 1000 damage, only one stack will consume, and what it means is those 10 stacks will take place one at a time over 10 turns. So you're doing your bleed damage too late because the enemy's already damaged and you're only doing a tiny amount at a time as well. You do have a card that can offset this, but it's only a single target attack, so Blade, unfortunately, due to how Blade works in the game in the moment, is really pretty underwhelming. Saying that, I'll put in a very quick disclaimer. He does have a particular card where you can convert the bleed into 2 marked, so what I would actually say with Blade is don't play him as a damage style character, play him as a character that will add bleed to multiple enemies via chain and via mods and then convert them into marked. If you play him from that perspective, it can actually be pretty useful, but I'm going to base him on a mixture of that, a mixture of using them optimally and also using them as a damage dealer. So unfortunately, on a rank of S to D, I would say that Blade would be a C tier hero, so he's definitely down there. Now let's have a look at the next hero. The next hero we have here is the awesome Captain America. He is a tank based character. I would say he is the best tank in the game. He's got the option of adding weak, which means the enemy does 50% less damage, which is absolutely huge. He's got various options for adding taunt. He can gain block through various cards, and he can also give block to his allies as well. So if you're unable to taunt an enemy and one of your allies is going to take damage, you've got block on them. He has a particular card combo. I'll show off the cards on screen at the moment. Use these 2 cards together. It allows him to taunt, it allows him to gain counter, so when he's getting attacked on his next turn, he'll attack the enemy's back, but on top of that as well, the damage he'll actually take, he'll more than likely gain that back as block when he does his counter attack. This basically makes him invincible. It's an absolutely incredible combination. I think one of the best card combinations in the game. Now on top of that as well, from the tanking perspective, you've got all that. He's also got a lot of cards in his kit that will draw random hero cards, so if you're playing a player that's particularly card hungry, let's say the likes of Iron Man, he likes to hog all the cards, you put him alongside Captain America, he works exceptionally well. Absolutely love how they've done him in game. Captain America would be an S tier hero. The next hero we look at here is Captain Marvel. She's the first hybrid style hero we look at. When we looked at Blade, he was a damage dealer. Cap was our tank. With Captain Marvel, she's a mixture of tank and damage dealer. Now, hybrid heroes in the game, because they're trying to do two different roles, I feel they suffer a little bit from that. They don't specialise really in either of those roles. Despite that, I will say that she has the potential to hit exceptionally hard. That's if you add her binary status. You play 3 cards, you can go into binary, that will give you an additional 100% damage, and if you add strengthened on top of that as well. If you don't do that, I feel that our damage numbers have been tuned in a way that they are undertuned because of the bonuses she can get. So if you're not making the most of binary and strengthened, she won't hit very hard. If you take the time to build her up and add them, then you can hit really hard with her. One thing I'll mention in regards to strengthen that gives you an additional 50% damage is this is actually an available mod on one of her quick cards, where on knockout, which is pretty easy to do on minions, you will gain strengthened, so that can be really nice. So she can hit exceptionally hard, but the problem is you need to get into the binary status, you need to add strengthened, and you need to stay in the binary status. You'll lose that if you lose all the block on her. So for that reason, I would rate her as a B tier. So she's essentially a mid tier character in that she can hit really hard, she can do a lot of damage, she can do decent tanking, but she requires a lot of setup, and you don't always have that time for setup due to the limited card plays you have. For the next hero, we have what I would say is our first pure support hero. Yes, he can do damage, but to get the most out of him, you want to go all in on the support, and he can offer an incredible amount. So you've got his passive in the first instance. This has a 50% chance of generating 2 heroism for you per turn, so that's really useful. You've got a particular card that allows him to refund the last 2 combat items used. Now, some of the later combat items you get, the legendary ones, can be complete game changers, so to be able to use them every match and not have to go out and find resources for them because you can refund them is just unbelievably strong. It really pulls them way up in this tier list. He also has a card that offers bind and vulnerability, which is exceptional for locking down bosses. They can't move in the turn, they'll take additional damage. But I found out recently that you can actually get a mod in this that makes the card free. So a free card play where you can actually bind and add vulnerability to a target is just exceptional. You also have the concealed mechanic on one of these cards. Now, the concealed mechanic is amazing. The reason for that, the way it works, is let's say you're Captain America and you tank the entire screen. If Doctor Strange was to then add concealed to Captain America on that turn, what would happen when it's the enemy's turn? They'll just stand around, they won't attack someone else instead, they won't know what to do because the enemy that they had taunted and they were about to attack has disappeared. So you can essentially waste the enemy's entire turn using this card. So overall, absolutely amazing support character, and he is our second S tier character. The next hero we have here is Ghost Rider. He's a character that can put out a huge amount of damage, however that's based on his risk-reward style gameplay. So in order to get the most damage, you need to actually gamble to an extent there. I don't personally like gambling in a game like this. I would say he's also got the highest skill ceiling in the game as well, so he's for players that are more advanced players for this particular genre. One of his main mechanics, his unique mechanic, it's the soul mechanic, where when he kills an enemy you will gain a soul, and when you build up enough of these you can actually boost his health pool. You can boost it up by 30%, which is pretty nice, and he's got certain cards that will do more damage based on how much health he actually has. He also has certain cards within his kit where he'll take damage, and there's one particular card that the more times you take damage, it keeps boosting up the damage on that particular card. So that's where the risk reward mechanic comes in. He does have a few cards in his kit that look to be really powerful, however they will either discard your entire hand or discard a random card. I really don't like this, and I find the cards unusable for that reason. Now, with Ghost Rider, personally I would put him at a B tier. I know there's people that would disagree with that. I wouldn't really disagree with them in return too much. If you're a player that you enjoy the risk reward style gameplay and you're someone that's proficient in this style of game, then you could probably pull him up to an A tier, but I think for the majority of players I'm going to place him as a B tier hero. The next hero we have here will be the last hero you unlock in the game. You actually get them just before the final mission. It is the Incredible Hulk, and he is really pretty incredible. He's another hybrid hero in that he's a brawler and a tank hero. However, with the likes of Captain Marvel and another hero we're going to talk about later on in the video, I don't really feel that he suffers that in the fact that he covers two roles. He can do both of those roles really pretty well. He's got a unique mechanic called Rage. So with this mechanic, when you take damage or when you play certain cards, you'll generate rage. Rage will in turn actually increase your damage. It can increase your damage up to a whopping 180%, which is absolutely huge. And some of your cards, when you get full rage, you'll just absolutely demolish the entire screen, especially his Midnight Suns card, which is really pretty amazing. Now, there are certain mechanics you can use with tanking style cards as well, where you can actually boost his health. So if you would rather not go down the damage route and you want to play more as a tank, you can boost his health to up to around about 3,500. Typically your tank style heroes will have anywhere between about 800 and 1000 health, so he's got 3 times as much health, so absolutely amazing. Now with Hulk, if it wasn't for the rage mechanic, if you could build up a little bit quicker, if you can maintain it easier, I would say it would be an S tier hero. But as it is, due to the fact you need to build up your rage in the first instance, he's a little bit like Captain Marvel in that respect, that his initial cards, his base cards without rage, are a little bit undertuned and you need to build them up first. So the fact you need to do that, I would say that he is an A tier hero. So he is still exceptionally good, but not quite S tier. The next hero we have here is Iron Man. He's a damage based character. When you do play him, he's quite similar to Captain Marvel in the respect that he is a hero that wants to hog all the cards and he wants to take all the card plays, but you can get some pretty amazing results if you just let him take over. He's got a unique mechanic with redraws, and that you can actually upgrade his cards so you can get some big damage boosts via this. He has utility in his kit such as adding Marked and Vulnerability. He's also got a few other utility based cards. They are focused on buffing him rather than his allies, so he's pretty selfish the way Tony Stark is written, but it works out really nice. And actually almost exclusively using Iron Man, I managed to do a 2-turn Nest Mirror kill, and that was on ultimate free difficulty as well. One of my favourite card combinations with him would be the Precision card. This allows you to replay your next attack followed by Air Superiority, and that's Air Superiority that we've boosted with redraws. With Air Superiority as well, it'll hit the entire screen. I think it's the only skill that actually does hit the entire screen, and with this you can add mods that can add weak or vulnerability. So what you can do is you can fire it off once, add vulnerability to enemies. The enemies that aren't finished off by it, you can then fire it off again to take them out, and they'll be taking an additional 50% damage on top of that as well. So an amazing damage dealer, and I've been absolutely able to smash ultimate free difficulty with him. So for Iron Man, he has to be an S tier hero. The next hero we have here is Magik. I would say she's quite similar to Ghost Rider in the respect that she's got a high skill ceiling, and depending how good you are at this style of game and planning ahead, that will really affect what you can get from her. Now, I've mentioned with previous heroes you can have damage dealers, you can have tanks, you can have support. I feel that to an extent that Magik is unique in that she's a crowd control style hero, because she's all about the positioning of enemies, she's all about moving them, and she's actually got a tank style mechanic in one of her cards, and tanking is a form of crowd control in games as well. She does make heavy use of the portal mechanic. This is where things get a little bit more complicated with her, but you can get some pretty amazing results from this. This allows you to essentially position exactly where you want to knock an enemy to, so once again you can get really nice results from that. I would say that she's possibly got the best Midnight Suns card in the game. This particular card allows you to taunt all enemies. You'll gain counter, which means you'll be damaging them during that next turn, and you're invulnerable as well, so it essentially negates an entire enemy's turn. Magik is a hero that I struggled a bit in regards to placing her. I'm going to say a B tier. If you say in the comments below that you feel she's an A tier, I'm not going to disagree with you about that at all, because she's really in between the two tiers, I would say. And again, similar to Ghost Rider, it's depending on really your own personal skill ceiling, what you will be able to get out of her. The next hero we have is Nico. She's our second support style hero. So she can actually be played as a damage dealer or support, but the damage dealing aspect, it's got a lot of randomness in it due to the way our kit actually works. So I would personally recommend, and this rating that I'll give her here today will be based on the fact you're playing it as a support style hero. I feel that's how she should be played. Now, playing her as a pure support style character, she's similar to Doctor Strange in that she has some really game-changing cards. She can add strength into allies, so an additional 50% damage before you fire off your hard-hitting move, the likes of the move we talked about earlier on in Iron Man. That with the strengthening can be pretty amazing. She has a card that allows her to generate a copy of all her either attack, skill or heroic cards that are in your hand currently. That includes legendary Midnight Suns cards. Some of the legendary Midnight Sun cards are incredible. Again, the one we talked about with Magik earlier on, if you generate a copy of that for 2 turns, the enemy's not doing any damage to you at all, so absolutely amazing. She also has a card, and this one's pretty amazing. It allows all heroic cards in your hand to cost 0 heroism. So there's certain heroes, the likes of Wolverine and Captain Marvel, that have cards that will consume all your heroism to do additional attacks. They can hit exceptionally hard, but having no heroism after using them feels pretty bad. This card takes that away. You'll get the benefit of having all the heroism, but it won't cost you any at all. Overall, I would say, due to there still being an element of randomness in the support side of her kit, she's not quite up there with Doctor Strange. So she's not an S tier hero, but I would say that she would still be very good. So I would class her as an A tier. The next hero we have here is Scarlet Witch. I think she's the only hero in the game that hasn't really clicked with me at all. I've really struggled with her. She's a support and a damage dealer style character. Her damage is definitely on the lower side, and she's got this mechanic whereby most of her attacks are an AoE centered around Scarlet Witch, and that will be the same for her support style moves as well. They'll be centered around Scarlet Witch. It's not a huge AoE, and the fact, unless you're getting moves via cards, you only get 1 move per turn. It can be really hard to use the AoE around it and either buff your allies or take out enemies with it. There is a card where you can actually increase the size of the AoE, it's 40%. Doesn't seem to make a huge difference, and it doesn't stack either. If this card potentially could have the free mod on it, if it was maybe increased to 100%, then it could be a lot more useful, and I feel it would really help her out at all. Her Midnight Suns card is one of the worst ones in the game because she does damage in an AoE around herself. After doing that, she'll knock out herself, which means you're messing up your mission rate and you won't get free star if you use this particular card. If you're playing on harder difficulties, you don't get a revive at all, so it means that's her out for the rest of the match. Really struggled with her, really disappointing to see the state she's in, and I'm hoping she does get a patch and we get some changes to her. So she's the lowest rated character. I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments for that, but she's going to be a D tier hero. For our next hero here we have Spider-Man. He is an environmental attack based hero. He's similar to Iron Man, that he likes to hog all the cards when he actually gets the opportunity, but when he does that you can get some pretty spectacular results on the back of it. He has a few cards that generate a form of momentum for him, in that once you start to play these cards you can just keep playing additional cards and doing additional environmental attacks for Spidey, and sometimes it just feels like he just keeps going, whereas some heroes you play 3 cards and that's it. With Spidey you can be going for ages in one individual turn, just taking down a whole heap of enemies. His legendary card is a great example of a card that allows him to do that. He is a very good hero. He just misses out on the S tier for the reason that his environmental damage that he does, or all environmental damage in the game, isn't boosted by strengthen. So he has a card that can add strengthen to him where you should do an additional 50% damage. That only applies to your cards, it doesn't apply to your environmental attacks. If they were to change it so it applied to that as well, then he would move up to an S tier, but as it stands he's an A tier, which is still certainly very good. The final hero we have here is Wolverine. He's another hybrid style hero, so he's a mixture of brawler and tank. He's quite similar to Captain Marvel in that he suffers a little bit due to the fact that he is a hybrid hero. He doesn't excel at either role, so it's quite funny. Wolverine's known for being the best at what he does. In this game, he tries to do two things, and that means he's not the best at either of those things, unfortunately. I will add that his Midnight Suns card alongside Nico's card that allows you to use a skill without consuming any heroism. It could possibly be the hardest hitting attack in the game, so if there's a stage where you maybe need to go in and take out a particular boss, if you pair him up with Nico, he would absolutely shred that boss. And he does have good survivability as well, because he's got various cards that will allow lifesteal, and he's actually the only character that's got a self-revive as well. It won't eat into the 2 revives you get on your normal difficulty. So overall, he is a good hero, but because he doesn't excel in either role, I would say that it's mid-tier, and mid-tier would have to come out at a B tier. So this is my overall tier list here. The fact quite a lot of the heroes are grouped together to me says that they've actually done a really good job, and I would just like to see the bleed mechanic on Blade potentially changed and see Scarlet Witch get some buffs. Once that happens, the heroes really aren't that far apart at all, so yeah, they've done really well in regards to balancing. Now let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree? And thanks for tuning in for this. Stay safe, and I'll see you all again soon.